Hi, and welcome back to When the Call Hits Home. I'm Jennifer Woosley, licensed professional clinical counselor.
And I'm Ashlee Gaffner, licensed clinical social worker. And we're hopping on today really quick because we came across this pretty incredible fundraiser, the EMS Olympics, that we both felt really needed to be heard. And so we're so excited to share it with our When the Call Hits Home family. And we have two special guests on today, and they're going to introduce themselves and then kind of get into what this is. So whoever would like to start first, please go ahead.
So I am Chris Oliver. I am a firefighter with Pleasant Prairie Fire Department currently. Been doing this for about 7 years. Spent quite a few years with the Bristol Fire Department. Um, I come from military background initially and got into the first responder world about 7 years ago, and have been loving it this whole time. So it's been great. I have my friend Ben with me. Him and I have been friends and have taught together and have worked together for many years now. And he's been an amazing mentor and everything with me. And yeah, that's probably about it for me.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Ben, you're on.
All right. Well, excellent. Thanks, Jennifer and Ashlee. First of all, I just have to say thank you so much for giving us a platform to kind of spread the word on this event. And we'll get in sort of the background and the details of that shortly. But I'm Ben Kessel. I'm the Associate Medical Director for Kenosha County EMS, which oversees the county fire departments and some private entities as well. I've been 24 years in EMS as an EMT and a firefighter paramedic, and then eventually became a physician assistant. I work in emergency medicine here in Kenosha County. And I'm part of that job. I'm the medical director for their kind of continuing education and training for the medical side of what the fire departments do. And that led to some relationships with the sheriff's department that we can talk about a little bit more, but becoming involved with their tactical response team and meeting Jeff, who this whole event is kind of in memoriam for.
Can you tell us a little bit about Jeff? I definitely want to hear about him.
Sure, absolutely. So Jeff Bliss was a detective on the county sheriff's department. I met him as he was a team leader for the tactical response team for the tactical unit or SWAT team. We had kind of joined forces when I helped the department stand up a tactical medic capability. So embedding paramedics from our county fire departments into the sheriff's department SWAT team, which was not a new idea for larger, more, developed and municipal teams, but pretty new around here and actually kind of new in the state of Wisconsin. But Jeff was a huge advocate for that. And I came to, really respect his leadership and his work with the fire departments and kind of helping develop this overall public safety system sort of mentality, which is different. And as children of first responders, I'm sure you guys can think of stories from your parents about how cops and fire did not historically always work all that well together.
I mean, this is actually, you're describing a bit of a unicorn, like an officer coming to fire and thinking about public safety as a bigger whole. That's impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he was that kind of guy. And the county fire chiefs in particular really appreciated his work with a joint fire investigation task force where, suspicious fires that occurred in the county would have to be, evaluated and see if there was any potential, arson or some other kind of, criminal activity going on. And that's obviously where the fire and law people would intersect on the fire ground. So after Jeff unfortunately passed away early, he was only 46 in April of 2022. The chiefs had decided that a way to try to honor him was to establish this scholarship fund, initially to try to encourage people to go to that fire investigation kind of certification course, which Chris, do you know more about that and how long that is, where that takes place, what's involved?
I do not know. I don't know much or many specifics about it. But I know that it's a pretty intensive course and everything. And one of the things that we're hoping to kind of relieve some of the potential people going to it of is maybe like a financial burden of that's preventing them or stressing them out going into this kind of course or any other course
Yeah.
similar to it. We want our people, whether it's fire, law, or EMS, to be able to focus on um, retaining the information and learning and being productive with it and everything. And um, outside factors like financial burdens and things like that can have a huge effect on, even if you're like the best student or whatever, like that can, there's a lot of distractions in our lives that can have an effect on how we perform afterward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that I think as children of first responders, I'm sure had to experience that there's a lot of training requirements
Mhm.
for staying on top of really demanding professions. There's constant changes in best practices. Obviously on the law side, there's legal changes that occur and
Right.
then high profile events that drag stuff into the spotlight, whether agencies for good or bad have been kind of putting things off or whistling past the graveyard and
Yeah.
counting on being lucky instead of necessarily good, right?
Yes, yes.
But we in the time that I've been involved with the fire departments here, we've had a number of gnarly things occur that have made us really kind of take a hard look at some of our tactics and our practices. And the interesting thing is that the speed that those kind of problems and challenges tend to evolve is
Yeah.
so much faster than the rate that like the standard overseeing agencies can keep up with, right?
Good
So if you're
point.
waiting
Yeah.
for like a national professional organization to catch up with what the next evolving threat might be, and then process all that information and then dictate some sort of like new practice or procedure down from on high, and then get that disseminated through like the typical training structure, that's years. I mean,
Wow,
that's
yeah.
years if everything is going well, right?
Mhm.
So the reality is that most of the good solutions that our agencies locally have come across have come not from like the core sort of compulsory continuing education and in-service kind of stuff. It comes from people just coming across like smart people in other places that have found a better mousetrap,
Mhm.
And so you catch them at conferences or at workshops or at standalone certification courses. Chris has done some of these, like advanced airway management courses and things, where you might see something that just tweaks a little bit of our existing practice, and it's enough to really make a difference, and then ends up percolating its way throughout how we do stuff as a
Right.
system.
I love this grassroots approach too. Like, let's start with us and what we want to grow and change. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
and it kind of, as therapists, I mean, that kind of returns that whole locus of control to the
And
agencies.
oh my goodness, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you might know
And
something.
so the reality is that all of these places are pretty much strained for budget and training
Yes.
time and recruitment and retention of personnel, which is, that's obviously multifactorial, but it's tough. So anything that we can do to make that a little bit easier for these guys and gals, that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And the nice thing, I think, too, with this event and similar things to it is not only does it help make it possible for our people to get out there and take these classes and everything, and and they come back with extra knowledge and experience, but they come back with connections. They come back with
Yep.
friendships that they built from other departments that they would probably never have otherwise interacted with. And so from then on, they have somebody from, me being in Kenosha County, I have friends in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, from that have taken a class with me that I can reach out to that can be like, hey, like, can I pick your brain or you can pick mine? Or even just as simple as, hey, you had a pretty bad call recently. I saw like a news release about it. Are you doing okay? And things like that. And we can just kind of stay connected more easily when we have these like cultural events that take place, like the event that Ben and I and our whole team of people that work together to make this possible. That helps goes towards that building connections, making it possible for people to go to these classes, and just having like fun events like this.
Well,
Is
tell us about the event.
I
Like
know,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
yeah.
so
really,
excited.
yeah.
yeah.
Tell us about this awesome thing.
So at this event, we meet at the Bristol Woods Forest Preserve here in Bristol and Kenosha County. It's a outdoor wooded path. There's a bunch of paths there, but we work together to kind of come up with a roughly 2 mile course that teams of three will go through. Now they're timed as they go through the whole like 2 miles, and that's how we determine on how good each team did. Basically, that's how we rank them. Your time starts at the beginning and it doesn't stop until you're past the finish line, similar to like a 5K or something like that. While they go through this 2 miles of course, there's a handful of stations with scenarios that they have to get through. So it's like a Tough Mudder kind of event where they're moving, and we require that they carry a certain amount of weight with them. We require 60 pounds for the
Oh,
team, and
wow.
it's up to them to determine how they want to split that up, whether it's 20 or if they just have one big strong person that doesn't have to think and they can just carry all 60. But so it's a physical challenge that they have to get through, which is fun for a lot of people in our job fields just by itself. But then they also have like a mental stimulus that they have to get through, a mental challenge, a skills challenge that they have to get through at each of these stations. And we usually try to gear the stations or the scenarios on events that don't necessarily happen all that often, but when they do, and inevitably we're all bound to come across at least one instance of these events, at least once during a career. It's things that it's like, okay, do you actually remember how to force a door and get to a patient? Do you remember how to get somebody up from uh, like a low area in the ground, like a hole in the ground, and get them up safely using the proper equipment and things like that? And to keep it fun and exciting as they're out there, so they're not slogging through an hour-long event at each station, we keep it very brief, quick. Like, here are the big points that we want you to hit and to remember, to kind of simulate like those actions that these crews are going to have to make when they first get to that real scene. Like, do you
Hmm.
recognize the first 5 steps of what you need to do, and can you do them quick? And the great thing is, so, they get through all this, they have endorphins running through them and everything, the fun of the competition and being together. And at the end, we have a nice little award ceremony. We have lunch brought in, from a local catering place. And so we can kind of sit around together and talk and have fun and complain about how hard myself and Ben made the course that year and things like that. So it's a real fun experience. Last year was our first one. And of course, it was, I wouldn't say pouring rain, but it stayed rainy consistently the
Mhm.
entire day. It was in October, so it was cold. Ben and I were running around trying to put out little fires here and there and things like that. And I speaking for myself, I felt, a little bad occasionally for some of the competitors because they were out there in the rain and everything. And they all were just at the end, overwhelmingly were like, no, like this was an amazing event. We had so much fun. It was great getting muddy and wet and things like that and being together
Yeah.
with each other.
I love this combination of body and brain because I've done a mutter before. You don't need a lot of brain power for that, but this is cool that you have this kind of element added to this event.
I think it
Yeah,
adds a
well,
lot.
there's a couple layers that we really tried to hit. The first is just the general fitness, and Chris is he's very involved with just overall firefighter fitness and conditioning, which is it. These guys and gals, in, most instances, they're performing athletic endeavors,
Mhm.
and so the fitness as distinguished from just overall wellness, right? Which is important also, but like at the end of the day, there's some of these instances where they just have to be able to put out hard, and if they're not in shape, there's really only a couple of potential outcomes. Either they won't get the job done, and there's going to be some sort of bad outcome, and they're going to have to live with that, hopefully live with that, or they will get the job done, but potentially injure themselves in the process,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And we see that over and over in the fires, especially back injuries and lifting. And
Yes.
there's been a lot of technological solutions to that, and that's awesome.
Mhm.
But just being able to do that physical mission set, that's never going to not be a part of both jobs.
Right.
So there's a fitness component to the race, right?
Mhm.
You got to hustle if you want a low time. The other element that we threw in there is, if you're doing these scenarios, these critical tasks, we kind of have little subsets where if you miss something that's really pretty important, like an egregious miss that would affect safety somehow, for example, then you get a time penalty, right?
Okay.
So you get a 30-second time penalty added to your
Oof.
time. So you can be fast, but if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, you may pay for it on the back end, right? So
Mhm.
there is that cognitive component. And as the teams, the evaluators only brief the team captain about the scenario and what the problem is. So that
You
individual
got
has to turn
communication that
around to the
has to
other
happen
Yeah.
here too.
team members, and
Okay.
they have to come up with a hasty plan, good, bad, right, wrong, or otherwise, and then execute it. So there's a team dynamic to that as well. And then obviously, like Chris was, alluding to a little bit ago, just the overall camaraderie
Mhm.
of them, getting out there, having fun, doing things together, hopefully meeting people and getting a chance to chit chat with people that they may run across on like an accident scene or something like that, but never really get a chance to train together
Right.
between the disciplines. And one of the things that we've learned over the years, as we look at some of these big crisis incidents, like our civil disturbance in August of 2020, Jeff was one of the earliest commanders, tactical commanders at that incident. Really helped basically hold that city together in the first few hours of that response, as we were getting resources in and trying to figure out a plan. And he was able to do that with injured people, injured officers, controlling that whole scene, because he had really, really good relationships with the counterparts on the fire side. They had trained together, they had done things. And, that's a commonality that whenever I've done any after action reviews or heard any debriefs on some of these, really, gnarly national critical incidents, mass shootings, or, just bad mass casualty incidents, that's a common theme. Is I hear people that are at operational levels of command anyway, that'll say, man, I looked over and I saw that it was Joe, and my next thought was, thank God it's Joe. And they were able to get patch to patch together and figure out a solution together. And that is exactly what happened during our riots in 2020. Those guys were able to get side by side, and they actually stayed that way throughout that entire response. And
Absolutely.
you can't do that if the only time you've ever met one another is, I don't know,
Right.
on an incident. It's just not going to go well.
Well, and I think that's why this is so cool, right? The EMS Olympics, because if I'm understanding correct, you make up a team of 3, but those 3 can be like mixed. So it doesn't
Yep.
just have to be police with police. It could be like police and fire as a team
Yep.
and EMS. Okay. All right. So that's pretty
So,
cool. I
and
mean,
some of the tasks are decidedly a little more fire based. Some of the tasks are decidedly a little more law based. So it's like an equal opportunity, uncomfortable situation for everyone. But the way we've designed the scenarios, and we give them little silent partners if we need to help things out, they'll find a solution. These guys and gals at the end of the day, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you this just in terms of their personality types, but these are professional problem solvers.
Mhm.
When it comes down to their core capability, what makes them good, and guys like Chris, who is an excellent paramedic, he's also a registered nurse, has worked in the emergency department, excellent firefighter. These people, they are able to think through problems in levels and at rates that the general population, I just don't think, has any appreciation for how difficult that is to do.
No, absolutely.
When a lot of that comes from, I would say, like a constant struggle for probably most first responders, whether it's fire and EMS side or law, of trying to maintain the appearance of a duck on the water, of looking, at least on the outside, you're calm and everything, but probably inside for most of us on plenty of calls throughout the year or throughout a career, your legs are going 1,000 miles a minute. And part of what goes into that is just maintaining comfort as best as you can on a scene. And a lot of times that comes from seeing that second person showing up and it's somebody that because, hey, we competed together at the EMS Olympics, or we went through this course, or we had lunch or something like that. To Ben's point of like when Jeff was working shoulder to shoulder with everybody during the civil unrest and everything, I'm sure a lot of that came down to just being like, okay, that's a familiar face. I've worked with him or her. I like him. We worked well. We got this. We can get through this together. And having events like this, just there are huge force multipliers in being able to build that up.
Well, and I just want to applaud this event too, in that, I think before we were hit record, but we were talking about, I think, Chris, maybe you mentioned it, just the culture, that we are trying to really create a community culture and a positive one. And I think that is what you're saying here in this, EMS Olympics, as well as, getting to share Jeff's memory. I always like it when somebody maybe I'll never get to meet, I get to hear about who they are. I think it kind of is a light and keeps them alive in a way. So thank you for that too, for sharing about Jeff.
Thank you. The culture, building up the culture is such a huge struggle that is one of many ways that I think all of these organizations are attempting to tackle the struggle of retention and hiring and things like that. And a lot of new hires that all of our organizations get are young people. They're fresh out of high school, maybe have a couple of years underneath their belt as an adult and things like that. And we're all looking for a family, a culture, a purpose, things like that. And you can find plenty of purpose in any first responder job. That's not necessarily a problem, but a lot of problems a lot of feedback that we get from people that are like, look, I don't think this is for me. When they talk more about it, it's kind of like, I just didn't feel like there was, a huge connection here. Like, it's not hard to find like a sense of purpose in going to a call and helping the public and everything. But sometimes when it feels like you're by yourself, that can make it that much harder to continue to have people want to do that, to come back for more and things like that. And that's what we need. And having that culture there is one of many ways also that we try to tackle like the mental health crisis in all of us. That can go so far if you feel comfortable talking to your friend that has been through this potentially, that knows the right things to say, that can go so far.
Absolutely. And just creating a safe culture is what I hear you say. And oh goodness, it is incredible to hear that being more of a goal in all of this.
And it's such a distinct culture, and it's one that is really, it overlaps fire and law because they're subject to many of the same stresses, right? And I think sometimes, especially recently, there's been a lot of attention, and it's good because as we were talking about before we started recording, the whole mental health kind of crisis in the first responder community has been, really shut away for too long.
Yes.
And we look at the negative parts of that culture sometimes as contributing to that. And there's some of them, definitely, right? But I think it's probably time to spend at least as much energy trying to identify the positive aspects of the culture that really are unique to, the public safety professions.
Yeah.
And I would include obviously dispatchers and, some of the other, emergency management people in with all this, emergency department staff and nursing. Like, we're all kind of a different little bit of a breed.
Mhm.
And it's not that there aren't other high stress professions. I mean, I'm sure being an air traffic controller is a pretty high stress job, right?
Yeah.
Or even within kind of more of our profession, or at least adjacent. So, if you're an anesthesiologist, that is a complicated job. You're under
Yeah.
a lot of pressure if, things start going sideways. But there's something different in the culture of the public safety professions where, if an air traffic controller passes away suddenly, yeah, that's a loss, and that's its own kind of tragedy. But what you won't see is a procession of vehicles and people at attention extending through basically an entire city, right,
Yeah.
Right.
to a memorial service, as we do for fire and law, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And there's something unique about that we really stand up for each other that way, and that this whole kind of concept of brotherhood and sisterhood, it sounds cliche, but it doesn't have to be. Like, we
Right.
really can dictate what that looks like in our culture and how we support things. And so for this issue in particular, the goal is for our Olympics to help fund this scholarship where basically any cop or any firefighter in our county that wants to pursue additional training, beyond the kind of obligatory refresher and kind of in-service requirements. But if they want to go out and they want to, do something on their own, they submit an application to chiefs and captains, and they'll cut them a check. Let them know what you want to go do, what you want to, train, what you're hoping to bring back,
Mm.
and we'll support it. We'll support it out of this fund.
That's awesome. How would people, if they're interested in doing this, how would they sign up for this? Is there, I do think I have the flyer, so I can also post that with this. But it's on a website, correct?
Yes. So this year we actually were able to create a website that we have up and running. At that website, that's where people that are interested in checking out more about the event, they can read up on it. They can see photographs that we've been able to get of prior events leading up to this. You can see prior people that have been able to get to use the scholarship to go to different events, and maybe a little blurb about what their experience was and what they were able to gain from that. And on the very like homepage right off the bat, there's a big thing that says like register your 2024 team to get involved, basically. So
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah, and we'll link all that too so that people have
Awesome.
access.
thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. And if anyone wants to learn more, or I know it's getting into mid-September already, and the event is actually, it's October 5th. I think Chris might have mentioned. So the first Saturday in October out here in Bristol, which I know is short notice for a lot of people. But if you can't make it, but you'd like to support otherwise, there's a QR code that you can donate directly into the scholarship fund if you'd like. And
That's
everything
wonderful to hear.
that we can do, we appreciate. But thank you, and thank both of you in a real way by just helping support this. You are a part of helping making our little corner of the world a little safer,
Mhm.
and that's huge.
Well, this was an easy thing to support, so that wasn't an issue at all. And I totally agree with your point, Ben, about let's celebrate what we are doing right and well. And this is definitely something that is happening in that. So again, this is a great thing that you guys have put together.
We see so much negative media and news and things like that, and it can make it hard for anybody to stay encouraged and positive sometimes when all we get flooded with is negative updates about stuff. So that was definitely part of all of this, is just having an outlet, an ability for us to put out good news, good media. Like, hey, here's all these first responders getting together to get better, to train, and to be more ready to be able to help the public, which is what we're here for, obviously.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, lastly, we just want to recognize the sacrifice and the courage that these people have when they step out of the door every day,
Oh,
Mhm.
go to
absolutely.
work or to run a call. You know, I know a lot of times it's tough, particularly for these, you know, smaller departments. It's hard to make it financially worthwhile for some of these
Mhm.
people, especially when they're up and coming, you know, and it's difficult. Some smaller departments that don't have, you know, real high call volumes, you know, on paper to, you know, box checker type mentalities, it may be hard to justify, you know, paying them more or you know, supporting further training. Because again, budgets are tight. I get it.
Yeah.
But the thing to remember, I think, is a lot of times we're not paying these guys and gals um, for what they do on paper or numbers or volumes. We really pay them for what they're willing to go do.
Mm.
And to see some of these people just step out onto horrific calls and somehow ride that wave of chaos and pull that together, you know, that's tough. That takes a
Yes,
special kind of person.
it is.
And
And
so,
well, I
go
was just
ahead.
going to say, and their families,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah.
that, that they're thinking and supporting as they leave and go and just serve the community as well. I mean, that's kind of how Ashlee and I got here and how we're all here in a way too. So I appreciate that because you're right, exactly what they're willing to do and what their families are willing to support them through as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we are, like I said, we're gonna post this on our stuff, our platforms. So hopefully our When the Call Hits Home community and family gets to you guys. We get a little bit more, but if not this year too, we got next year. It's gonna be
Yeah.
yearly, right? It's annual. So we can really make this a big thing, and we're just honored to be a part of it and to help both of you. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. I really thank you for sharing the message. That means a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very much for
Pleasure.
inviting for to have both of us on here and to talk more about this.
Absolutely. Everyone's got to do it. You got to go to the EMS Olympics. We have to see
Yes,
it get
I'm
big.
going to
We're
get
going to
my
make it happen.
2025.
Let's
Yes.
do it. Like I'm excited about this. And so, oh, I'm going to be there. Don't you worry. Thank you
Good.
guys so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, it
All
was
Thank
a
you. Be
right.
safe.
pleasure.
All right. You
Bye.
too. Bye.